Patrick, great to see you again.
Nice seeing you again.
I really appreciate you carving out some time. So, we're here to talk about this new opportunity at Area 1, what you're focused on, what the business is focused on. You've been announced as CEO. How did you hear about the opportunity and what made you decide to join the business?
Sure. So I have known about Area 1 for a while. Area 1 Security has done some really seminal research and has found some of the big phishing-based attacks that have occurred in the world. You probably read a little bit about the Burisma report that came out during the political fracas that was going on around Russia and the like. And so I knew a good bit about it. And then I met Oren Falkowitz, one of the founders, back in January, and we just started talking about the opportunities. And he was looking to really focus in on on really the customers, the research side, writing side, and really getting more into the federal business. And we just figured this would be a great time to add a new CEO that was really focused on the go-to-market.
Okay. All right. Now, this market, I could be wrong. You know me, I'm just a blogger. I'm not a tech guy who goes real deep, but the market for email security and phishing mitigation, it's pretty crowded. What makes you guys unique in this sector?
Sure. Well, I think what makes it crowded is that the world for a long time has been based around perimeter-based email security and security solutions. And as you've seen the rise of O365 in terms of the market share of people who have email, it really means that, hey, those perimeter solutions don't make a lot of sense. And those are usually defined as being secure email gateways, SEGs. Well, in the new world, there's no G, there's no gateway, there's no perimeter, right? And so it doesn't make a lot of sense. So the market's really shifting right now, and that's why it's a little bit less crowded than you think. Yes, the incumbents are really trying to participate very heavily in this new market, but they're really optimized, not really being cloud native and not really being 100% maniacally focused on anti-phishing. And that's why it's not quite as crowded as you might think. The key focus for us is that, one, we're cloud native. We live in, we can scale infinitely, and we can sit in front of G Suite or O365. And we're really recognized, and we're recognized forever, that cybersecurity these days, 95% of the attacks, it's coming through email. It's coming from phishing attacks. And that's where we're very, very focused. So crowded, yes, but as the market evolves, it evolves into something different. SEGs, secure email gateways, become cloud email security solutions. No perimeter, not a bunch of VMs stood up in the cloud with people saying, hey, that's a cloud solution. It's not a cloud solution, right? SaaS has to be SaaS. We're SaaS.
Gotcha. Okay. Now, you mentioned the opportunity to scale infinitely. I'm sure some of our listeners and viewers would say, oh, that must mean they're way up in the enterprise global 2000. What is your sweet spot? Are you going global 2000 or mid-market, or are you using partners to go small business? Where are you going to focus your efforts?
So the very first thing that Area 1 Security did was it won some of the biggest enterprises in the world, some of the biggest banks. So it won major financial institutions, major brands that every one of us know about day in and day out. And that was about 3 years ago. And then the renewal rates on those are virtually been 100%. So we've proven ourselves out at the very most massive scale. And so for the first maybe year and a half, the company was really focused on doing deals no smaller than 10,000 mailboxes type thing. So it was very much high enterprise. And so it won those deals, gained what I always call the halo effect. So it got the halo, we proved that we can do it. So if we can do it all the way up at that high end, we know we can do it in the mid-market as well. So where I am right now is I think I'm much more about focusing in on the broadest segments of the marketplace. So 500 users and above, 1,000 users and above, absolutely. Any of those ranges become very, very optimal for our solution.
Got it. Okay. Now, one of the reasons we're speaking this week, in addition to you becoming CEO, is the company raised $25 million. How do you intend to leverage that money? Where do you intend to invest it in terms of where you're placing your bets for the company?
Sure. The company used most of its initial funding to really develop, a world-class solution around preemptive finding of phishing, right? And so it built this huge crawler. It literally crawls the internet. It has all this tech around how it is able to preemptively find the attacks before they're actually launched. On average, about 24 days before an attack actually reaches somebody, we've identified infrastructure being stood up. So that, our machine learning engines, I know that's an overused term, but we really use it. all those things that we have done was from the initial funding. Where we go from here in this 25 million is about go-to-market, making sure we're scaling engineering always, because my background's product. I'm always going to love product. I'm always going to be biased towards product. But more importantly right now is for us to build a channel. So enable our distribution relationships, leverage that, leverage our channel partners, and then really wisely grow that. So I'm not going to sign 1,000 or 2,000 resellers all of a sudden. What we're going to do is we have a very good onboarding process, and you've seen some of the partners that we already have. Work with them tightly, have a very collaborative relationship, sell together, and push. For me, everything goes through the channel. So it's about go-to-market, channel expansion, working with our VARs, working with our MSSPs to make sure that we really get into that sweet spot of 500 to infinitely large companies.
Got it. Yeah, one of the things that impressed me ahead of this interview was the fact, and you mentioned it, I checked out your website and I looked at your list of partners. You have MSSPs, you have distributors, you have VARs. That isn't the case for a lot of quote unquote security startups these days. First, they build the business and then they figure out, oh my gosh, we need the channel after.
Yeah.
What was the secret sauce here in terms of Area 1 knowing about the channel opportunity? It seems like very early on in the business.
I think that culturally, what our salespeople have done is gotten to good relationships with companies and asked them about their preferences. Do they prefer, do they enjoy going through the channel? Do they have a relationship that they have a trust with? And what I've always felt, for being in the channel for 25 years, always done business through the channel, is you build relationships with people who establish themselves as the trusted security advisors to companies. And then the companies will tell you they trust. And so for us, it's been very collaborative. We've had worked with some of the absolute biggest companies in the world, and they've helped us. They've said, well, this is who I enjoy working with. You maybe two in the same region or something like that. And then we've basically sat down with those channel partners and said, look, we're working with a major enterprise. We are doing a lot of the proof of value. Why don't you participate with us? We'll teach you a little bit about the technology, about how you deploy, about how you would work with these large companies. We'll lead you through the entire step. And, long run, you're going to wind up handling that business with us, and it's going to be profitable for you. It's going to be good for us. And my background, right? So I'm very, very focused on 100% channel loyalty. We will be loyal to the channel. So once we started to talk to companies about that, I think those relationships came around very organically, very naturally in that way.
Got it. Okay. Now, you and I are speaking July 1st, 2020. For those who view this years from now, no doubt historians will be talking about the pandemic and how we all navigated the pandemic. Let's talk a little bit about Area 1. Have you guys had to pivot or evolve the business or evolve the focus amid the pandemic?
Yes, massively so. So I started talking to Orrin and to Kleiner and to ForgePoint all the way back in January before everything had blown up. But my first day was April 1. By that time, it was like, wow, this is really interesting. Fortunately, I had met Orrin first, but most of the rest of the company I've had to meet virtually. But the shifts are dramatic. So to give you some examples, the company had been doing all of its lead acquisition by doing very in-person events. That's blown up completely, does not exist. And so now you're switched to a very virtual world. And so we're literally learning as we go how to provide really excellent content via webinars and podcasts. And, Orrin Falkowitz himself is doing a tremendous amount of now writing about the company, about the research, and pushing out good content so that people learn the interesting things that we do. And that's a lot about how we've shifted our marketing, which is we're not trying to market around brand names and stuff. We're trying to be very direct with people. This is what we do. Here's the technology that you need to know about. Here's what it's going to do for you. Here's how it's going to lower costs. Here's how it's going to do greater efficacy. But we have to communicate that through writing, through webinars, through podcasts. And then we have a lot more activity around direct calling. But boy, it's hard. Let me tell you something. This is again why it would have been even great if we had doubled down on the channel before I'd gotten to the company, because channel partners have relationships with companies. New companies who don't have a relationship, new vendors like ourselves who don't have established relationships, it's hard to get the people on the phone and to build those new relationships. So no matter what, you know me, you know my background, I would have been coming in saying channel, 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 no matter what. But in this new world order, the realities of a company like Area 1 Security, it just makes it all the more important. So it becomes a vital motion. So which is why I think you're seeing this super acceleration in 90 days from where we were to where we are today, about being so tight with our channel partners, and now starting to go through the process of really expanding that and doing a much better job of, you know, do we have all the right onboarding tools? Do we have all the right portal tools? Do we have all the things that I believe are inherent in being a really world-class channel loyal vendor?
Got it. Now, if I was to, if social distancing, if it ended and I visited your office and walked into your office and saw your whiteboard, what would be on the short list of your priorities for the rest of 2020 in terms of where you want to take the company and what you want to focus on as the big priorities?
So it's pretty basic, you know, in terms of what we're doing these days. One of which is we can never lose our technical lead, right? So we're basically continuing to scale up our mega crawler to basically make sure that we're focused more on preemptive security. So the idea that we can spot the campaigns before they're actually launched. More investments in business email compromise, because that's really what's been vexing a lot of companies. It's the reason why big banks like doing work with us, and regional banks and things in that nature. But I've kind of already alluded to it or foreshadowed to it. I just have to give you the straight up honest answer, which is it's really basic. It's really about hiring more additional channel centric account executives and scaling the company much larger. So that's number one, really getting the number of bodies on board, the critical biomass that we need to be effective. And honestly, trying to tick and tie everything that I believe is fundamentally important in running a good channel business. And I'm quite literally not saying this just because we're talking, you're going to talk to me about channel. Right. Everything I've done, everything that's set as an internal priority is all around that. And it is about the portal. It is about the information. It's about channelization of content. It's about, sales training for the channel, profitability models. It's about the SE training for those institutions so that they can become wonderful and support the customers in a world-class way. That's it. It's really about that. It is about channel, but it's about us, and it's about making us good for the channel to make sure that when I go out and I shake someone's hand, well, I guess I'm not going to do that, but you said if the pandemic ended.
Right.
I'm going to have to do my virtual shaking.
When?
Eyeball to eyeball somehow via Zoom. Whatever it's going to be, that I look them in the eye and I say, we are ready, we are prepared, we're culturally aligned, and we're going to be just a tremendous value add, because this market's changing. Those SCGs, they're not worth it anymore. They are, a lot of those capabilities that are in those products are simply provided by Microsoft and Google today. And what we provide is the right level of product and the right level of solution. So it's going to be about education, education, education. So product, channelization of the company, and about world-class education as people understand that you're moving from a secure email gateway market to a cloud email security solution. And they're different. They're very similar. They're overlapped, but they're not the same.
Fantastic. Well, I'll tell you what, Patrick, I hope to check in with you to hear a progress report later this year. Thanks for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Joe. Nice seeing you again.